So it's Halloween, we're putting out the Halloween decorations, and Halloween is just one of the many things that I love about America and that is so different from the United Kingdom. And you know, the other thing that is very different to the United Kingdom is the fact that you're allowed to do things in America you can't do in Great Britain, like own a gun, for example. So even here in New Jersey, which has one of the strictest gun laws in America, I'm able to own a vintage M1911 45 caliber handgun, which is amazing. And I really support America giving people the right to own guns as long as you're a responsible gun owner. And to be honest, I think as long as you are responsible in what you do when you own a gun, there shouldn't be any danger involved whatsoever. It's all about personal responsibility.
Dad, can you open the soda for me?
Oh sure, honey. Don't worry, you'll be very pleased to hear that nobody was hurt in the filming of that skit. You probably noticed from the poor special effects that this is not a real gun at all. This is a fake gun. It's actually a $10 airsoft gun I bought off Amazon, and I painted it myself. I use it when I do social media posts for my Knuckleheads series of romance books, because the two main characters in my Knuckleheads motorcycle club both carry a Colt M1911, just like this one. But the reason I wanted to make this video and that little skit in the beginning is because I've been pondering a question the last couple of days. No doubt you have heard about the tragedy that occurred on the movie set of Rust, which is a western that was being produced and starred in by Alec Baldwin. And it seems like a tragic story. Alec Baldwin had a scene in which he had to point a gun at the camera. The associate director handed him the prop weapon and said cold gun, which means this is a gun not loaded with live ammunition. Alec Baldwin obviously accepted that there was a cold weapon, pointed it at the screen, boom, 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 pulled the trigger, and boom, it discharged and killed the cinematographer. The bullet went through the cinematographer and injured the director. It's horrible. I can't even imagine what Alec Baldwin is going through emotionally right now. And it is a horrible tragedy, and it's caused people to ponder the question of, why do we have real guns on a movie set? Why don't we just use special effects these days? Because special effects are accessible to pretty much everyone. You can put them together, you know, very quickly. That thing I did with my daughter, it took me about 20 minutes to assemble that muzzle flash and stuff like that, and I didn't use any pre-made assets. So these days, for like 15 bucks, you can sign up to a service and download a certain number of special effects every day, and they're basically like drag and drop onto Adobe Premiere, and they are things like gun flashes and rounds flying out and stuff like that. Everything you need is available, and it's drag and drop, and it takes just seconds to put in, and it looks okay. Or you can do what I do, and I created everything from that scene myself from scratch using Adobe After Effects, and it looked okay. In fact, look at this one. This one I did a few years ago when I first got into doing this with a shotgun, and I think it looks more than okay. I actually think this looks pretty convincing. I think you could actually legitimately have that in a movie and, you know, not get taken out of the action by a very obvious fake effect. So that does bring out the question. If you can put convincing gunfire effects in post-production, why do people use real guns and real bullets and real blanks and real firearms on set? And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One of the reasons is the fact that, yeah, special effects, they look okay. They really look okay. And if you are making a fast-paced movie with a low budget and you don't have access to firearms and armor or anything like that, you can use these post-effects and they'll look pretty good. They will look pretty good, but they don't look perfect by any means. And in a film like Rust, which is a western, especially when you're doing a scene, you know, with the gun pointing at the camera, I don't think you could convincingly use special effects to make it appear like that gun is being discharged. So I can understand why on a film like a western, something that's like, you know, iconic and so deeply entrenched with America's obsession with guns, I don't think you could use special effects to convincingly reach the level of quality that the producers would want there. I think special effects can look great, but when you're making film like the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, they must have fired 1 million rounds in all of the action sequences there, but they used real firearms and real blanks because they look amazing. And one of the, with the exception of Die Another Day, we don't really talk about Die Another Day, with the exception of Die Another Day, for the most part James Bond films are synonymous with practical effects, and you can see why the practical effect looks so convincing. So I think from a quality point of view, it's like, you know, you can drink sparkling wine or you can drink champagne. You have to make a choice between one or the others. VFX, I like sparkling wine, they're fine, get the job done, but if you want champagne, you have to use real guns, real ammunition and stuff like that. It's the only thing that's going to look convincing. And in terms of safety, I think it is fair to say the fact that gun accidents are so rare on movie sets, given how many movies get made, how many movies featuring guns get made, how many millions of rounds of ammunition get fired. I think the fact that, you know, gun deaths are so mercifully rare is just a testament to the fact that movie production professionals are professionals and they take their job extremely seriously. And I think what happened on the set of Rust, that's not really down to guns. It's down to a bunch of different mistakes made by people on that set. Apparently they were taking the prop guns they were using for the scenes and plinking beer bottles between takes. Apparently they had live ammunition on the same table as blank ammunition and dummy ammunition. There was clearly a breakdown in protocol from the armourer who should have been supervising weapons. The associate director picked up a weapon without checking with her. The associate director didn't check that weapon himself, handed it to Alec Baldwin and said this is a cold gun. Alec Baldwin had that gun with a reasonable expectation that it would be safe to use, and yet he pointed it at another human being and pulled the trigger. The tragedy was horrible, but you can see the number of steps that had to be violated to make that happen. Alec Baldwin should know the first rule of gun safety is you never point a gun at somebody unless you are willing for them to die. Like, that's the first thing I ever got taught when I picked up a gun. The fact that the associate director didn't check the gun and gave it to Alec Baldwin and said it was safe. That's why Alec Baldwin thought the gun was safe, because he thought the associate director was doing their job. The associate director did not do their job. The associate director should not have taken that gun unless the armourer had approved it for them. The armourer wasn't there, so the armourer wasn't doing the job. The fact that live ammunition was there on the same table as blank ammunition and dummy ammunition, that should never have happened. It was just a whole list of things that should never have happened. And the fact that real guns were being used in many ways was like the smallest of the things that could have gone wrong with all that. So many guns get used on so many movie sets without these tragic accidents, so it's really not the fault of the gun. And in terms of gun safety, yes, if you use real guns on a movie set, that has an element of danger attached to it. But if you're making a movie with motorcycle stunts, or abseiling down a building, or jumping out of a plane with a parachute, those are also dangerous things. That's a whole point. Movies are meant to present dangerous scenarios, and they're filmed in a safe way. So I think using real guns on set responsibly and safely is not a dangerous or untenable thing at all. And I think for what you get for doing so, it just elevates movie making to such a huge extent. Another reason, in fact, that the people use real guns on set instead of blank firing guns is the fact that there is this quality of effects, there is this, the way they look is so convincing that a real gun is the only way you can actually get that effect. They do make blank firing guns, for example, and I think they do get used on movie sets to a certain extent. I've owned blank firing guns though, and they resemble real guns to a certain extent. They would have, like if you had a blank firing Colt 1911 for example, it would have a magazine with 7 rounds, and you would cock it the same way and the blank would get loaded the same way, but when you pull the trigger, instead of the hot gas getting ejected through the barrel like this, the barrel gets ejected upwards. And the reason for this is because if you have a clear barrel that can shoot out the gas from the blank cartridge, anything in that barrel then becomes a projectile and it could actually kill you. So blank firing guns are typically made with the barrel pointing upwards, so when they are discharged they do not, or they at least significantly reduce the chance of anything in that barrel actually shooting out and hitting somebody. But it doesn't look right on film. If you have a bunch of people shooting blank firing guns, oh, do you see, that just discharged them. Didn't expect that. This is why guns are so dangerous. If you have a bunch of people firing these blank firing guns on set, you can immediately see in slow motion the gas and the flames and sparks coming out of the wrong end. And so that's not really going to work. You can get blank firing guns that are designed to have the gas, I don't know, go through some kind of baffler or something like that and go out the front. But the problem is blank firing guns aren't produced in a huge amount of variety, because the audience that they have, the people who want to buy these products, is so small. So if you wanted a Colt 1911, they make blank firing versions of those, and they make blank firing versions with the baffle or whatever, so the gas comes out the front. Same with the Beretta 92F or even like a Walther PPK. But if you wanted a specific type of gun that wasn't so common or popular, like if you wanted, I don't know, a Heckler & Koch P7 M13, or you wanted a Marikov pistol or something specific, they probably do not make blank firing versions of those. And so at the end of the day, then you're just left with the fact that you're going to have to use a real gun with blanks, or else you're going to have to add it with VFX, and it's a lot easier to use a real gun with blanks. A lot of the time, just because it looks better, you use a real gun. With a Western, like Rust, the weapons they were using were period revolvers, or replicas of period revolvers that were actual firing weapons, because they don't make blank firing versions of a lot of those period weapons. If you wanted a blank firing version of a Colt 45, the Peacemaker, the gun that won the West, that's fine, they make a gazillion of those. But if you wanted a blank firing version of one of those, breakdown Smith & Wessons, or a Navy Colt or something like that, they don't make them. So you have to use real guns. And if you have an armourer and the protocols and the safety systems in place, it shouldn't present a significant danger. It's only a significant danger when people don't follow the rules. And the rules are there for a reason. And the rules should be obvious to everyone. I've only ever made one film in which we actually had a gun on set, and it was a real gun, but we all knew that it was a real gun, and even though we only had blanks on set, we all treated that gun with a huge amount of respect, because if guns don't scare you somewhat, you shouldn't be around them. That's really it, and I think that's where things fell apart with Rust. And I think this whole idea of arguing that you can use VFX to mimic like real gunfire, it's kind of a red herring, and I think it diverts from what the real issue is, which is the fact that people on set making a movie using real guns were irresponsible, and it led to somebody's death. And I think that is a very, very chilling thing that should give us all a lot of pause for thought. And I think a lot of people are, highlighting the fact that Alec Baldwin is so anti-gun ownership and stuff like that, but I think there's a certain amount of truth in that as well. I mean, I am not the biggest gun nut in the world. I don't own a gun. I like guns. I like going shooting. I've shot all my life, but guns scare me. I like shooting, and I like going off to the gun range with my friends, and one day when my kids are older I might own a gun myself. But guns scare me, and they should scare you. One of the first rules you learn is never ever point a gun at somebody unless you are willing for them to die. And Alec Baldwin, when he was shooting that movie, he pointed the gun at somebody. I mean, that should not be something that anybody does. It boggles my mind. And I think the fact that Alec Baldwin is so anti-gun, that's kind of like, that shows how being anti-gun often means that people don't actually take the time to learn to respect guns. And that's something you should do, whether you agree with them being publicly available or not. I mean, I know a lot of people who own guns. I know a lot of people who own a lot of guns, and I'll tell you what, the one thing I've noticed about every single gun owner is that they do not fuck around when it comes to guns. Like, I know a lot of people who own guns who are the literal, like, hold my beer kind of people. They'll climb anything, they'll do crazy things with quads or motorcycles or something like that. When it comes to guns, they do not fuck around. Gun safety is foremost on their mind. And I think that's something that people are going to think an awful lot more about these days following what happened after Rust. But for me, it was chilling to hear about, but I don't think that guns on movie sets are going away anytime soon. I don't think they need to go away anytime soon. And I think we've reached the sort of level where, yeah, if you are willing for your effects to look okay, you can go with VFX, and that's great, and that makes certain movie making things within reach and accessible to so many types of people who had never had a chance to make films that look like that before. But at the end of the day, there's no substitute for the real thing. And I think people really are not looking at the right thing when they start arguing about taking guns away from movie sets and using special effects instead. That's not what the problem is. Guns exist in America. They are here to stay. They are part of the national identity. They are part of cinema's blood. I mean, how many movies do you know that don't even have a gun? It's I would say probably 50% or more movies that get produced involve a gun in some capacity. So, you know, they're here to stay. Let's focus on the real issue, and the real issue is people who make movies are professionals, whether they're stunt people, whether they are actors, whether they are people using guns and things like that. They need to have a level of professionalism and standards that they hold themselves to. And terrible, terrible tragedies like this go a long way to reminding us how important it is for those standards to be adhered to. I guess. I don't know. To be honest, it was just a fun excuse to make that little skit in the beginning. But yeah, my heart really goes out to everyone affected by what happened on the set of Rust, and it is a terrible, terrible tragedy. So many people are trying to come up with like who to blame, and it's very easy to do that, but to be honest, I just feel so much empathy for them. I can't even believe what Alec Baldwin must be feeling to have killed somebody, and that guilt to him. But again, he was handed a weapon by somebody who told him it was safe. And the associate director is probably killing themselves with guilt as well, because they didn't check the weapon, but they thought it was safe. They picked it up off the armorer's table and thought it was safe. And the armorer is probably killing themselves with guilt because there was a weapon on the armorer's table that wasn't safe, and they should not have left it there. And the cast and crew have been like plinking beer bottles with the guns. Hopefully they understand how they contributed to this all. It's just horrible. It's just a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. So I'm going to wrap this video up by just saying that it's a horrible situation, and it just teaches us that guns are exceedingly dangerous, but it also teaches us that generally inanimate objects aren't the problem, people are. And whatever your feelings on guns, that's what we need to remember. It's like, be accountable, be safe, look out for the people around you. Anyway, that's all I've got to say on the matter. I will catch up with you soon. Bye.